people stopped coming. We know that. That's now very clear. It wasn't just a temporary stop. It wasn't a blip. It's an extended period of decreased flows. But people here didn't go home. The resident population proved extremely durable during a time of amazing unemployment and economic losses, combined with the raids we were talking about just before, the atmosphere of fear that we were talking about, and the atmosphere and the really palpable economic losses. All of those things did not convince people to go back to their communities of origin. There are also, signs of a different kind of economy in terms of reverse remittances, which is something that I'm very hard to get a handle on. There is some evidence that I'm trying to cull to show the extent to which people here drew money back from the communities where they had sent remittances over the years. That there was a flow of money back to communities of destination to support people during the economic downturn. There's been a serious interruption in that flow, and so the resident communities are becoming more settled just with the passage of time. They're becoming more acculturated. They're, along with the natural increase, the fact that you've got these large cohorts of native-born second generation who are moving into adulthood. Even the workforce, the young workforce, is changing in composition. It's becoming less undocumented, more native, more English-speaking, less poor, better educated, all as a result of the fact that you're not pumping in large numbers of people, of new arrivals, coming with less education, more Spanish-speaking, less immigration status. And meanwhile, the recession put the brakes on another trend that had been one of the fundamental narratives that we had in this population, which was the upward mobility of the working class, particularly the more settled older migrants who are moving into home ownership, who are moving into steady jobs, who legalize their status one way or another, or come legally. And we know from the effects of housing alone that there's been an enormous loss of capital out of that population. I mean, a defunding of that population, a loss of what would have been the accumulated wealth of 10 or 15 years worth of very hard work. This period has also produced developments in terms of enforcement, and we were talking about this this morning. There is a split in the pro-immigration progressive side on enforcement, where you've got the president now going down to the Chamizal in El Paso last May and boasting about having 20,000 Border Patrol agents. You've got the full purchase of, as Wayne described, this notion that enforcement gives you inoculation. On the other hand, you have lots of other people saying enforcement will never work. People in this room. It has no effect. It's kind of useless. So on one side, you've got something of a contradiction, an inability to decide whether enforcement is good or bad, whether it has an effect, whether it doesn't affect. On the other side, you've got no ambiguity. And this is one of the characteristics of the way the debate has developed in the last few years, that there's greater coherence on one side and greater incoherence on the other. And I think we're seeing the effects, and they're going to continue to play out. And this is playing out in a change in the political context, where skepticism about government has increased. There's been a loss of confidence in national identity, all of the conditions that all the classic literature on nativism will tell you produces a reaction. Right? I mean, it is, textbook John Hine happening here in terms of the larger political context. The legal context has changed. We talked about this as well. The idea of federal preemption as an inviolable doctrine of immigration policy is gone. And I don't think that genie will never be completely put back in the bottle. There's going to be state and local activity in some way or another. The Supreme Court, in a couple of months may open the door to it substantially, even if it doesn't, even if it's a narrow ruling on the Arizona case. I think you're going to see increased activity. And so there are big questions about how immigration policy is going to be decided. I mean, where and who makes decisions about flows, about integration, about enforcement measures. These things are all now in play in a way that was inconceivable in 2006 when Teddy Kennedy could say, hey, look, I can put 20 people in a room, we can do this. I mean, that formula for policymaking is gone. And so you have to rethink fundamentally the kind of political bargains that lay behind that. Personalities. But if you think back, again, to 6 years ago, and you had personalities like George Bush, Teddy Kennedy, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, people who were seriously invested in this issue, they're all gone one way or another. On the other side, you have got some real personalities. I mean, Chris Kobach was mentioned earlier. I think he's really a significant person. He has set an agenda. He has defined a course of action, and he is getting serious leverage. There's an agenda, there are leaders, and the restriction side has an organization now, the Republican Party.